The bright lights of the America's Got Talent stage shone across the massive theater, making it look like a palace of dreams. For many contestants, this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, and for Juan, a small, shy Filipino boy from the crowded streets of Manila, it felt almost unreal. His steps were slow as he walked to the center of the stage, each one echoing in his chest like a heavy drumbeat. He was wearing simple clothes, nothing flashy, nothing glamorous. His shirt was neatly ironed but worn from many washes, his shoes slightly old but polished with care. He didn't come to impress with appearances, he came to sing. The cameras zoomed in on his nervous face. The audience, many of them unfamiliar with the life he came from, whispered among themselves. Some doubted, could this poor boy really be ready for such a grand stage? After all, talent shows like AGT often brought performers with big personalities and confident flair. But Juan wasn't here to show confidence, he was here to show heart. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. He gave Juan a sharp look that often left contestants trembling. "Hello," Simon said, his voice carrying across the vast stage. "What's your name, and where are you from?" Juan clutched the microphone tighter, swallowing nervously. My name is Juan," he said softly. "I'm from Manila, Philippines." His accent was thick but clear, his voice sincere. "And why are you here today?" asked Heidi with a warm smile. Juan glanced at the judges, then at the thousands of audience members staring back at him. His voice cracked slightly as he said, "I come from a very poor family, my parents work very hard, but life is very difficult back home. I sing on the streets sometimes to help. My dream is to sing for the world, and to make a better life for my family." A hush fell over the room. Suddenly, this wasn't just a boy standing on a stage. This was a story of struggle, hope, and a dream bigger than poverty. Simon tilted his head. He'd heard many stories before, but there was something in Juan's trembling honesty that pierced deeper. "All right, Juan," Simon said slowly. "Show us what you've got." The music began, soft piano notes filling the air. Juan closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and brought the microphone to his lips. This was it, the moment that would either lift him or break him. The first note escaped Juan's lips like a gentle whisper, trembling yet soulful. The audience leaned in, unsure of what was coming. Then, his voice grew stronger, rich, powerful, and filled with raw emotion. It was as if every hardship he had endured in the bustling, noisy streets of Manila was poured into that song. His tone carried the sound of hunger, of nights when his stomach ached, of mornings when he helped his mother sell goods at the market, and of days when he sang barefoot in alleys, hoping someone would drop a coin. The theater, which had been filled with whispers and murmurs, fell completely silent. You could hear the breath of anticipation as his voice soared higher, trembling with sincerity. People in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. His performance wasn't just technical brilliance, it was storytelling through song. Every note was a piece of his soul, painted in sound. Howie Mandel leaned forward, whispering to Heidi, "This boy, he's unbelievable." Sofia Vergara's eyes widened, and she clasped her hands to her chest. "So much emotion," she muttered softly. Even Simon Cowell, the famously stone-faced judge, raised his eyebrows in surprise. As Juan reached the chorus, Simon's posture changed. He uncrossed his arms, leaned forward, and gave a small smile, the kind that appeared only when something truly extraordinary touched him. The cameras captured the audience's reactions, a little girl, clapping and shouting, an elderly man standing to his feet in awe, and Juan's mother in the crowd with tears streaming down her cheeks. And then came the high note. Juan's voice shot up like a rocket, soaring into the rafters of the massive hall, trembling but unwavering. It wasn't just a note, it was his cry to the world, a declaration that poverty could not silence his spirit. The entire arena erupted in cheers and applause, but Juan kept singing, his eyes closed, his soul bleeding into every lyric. By the time the final note faded, there was no hesitation from the crowd, they leapt to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. The roar of the applause was deafening. People were shouting his name, Juan, 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 Juan. Breathless and trembling, opened his eyes, tears brimming. He saw the entire arena standing for him, for the poor boy from Manila who once sang on street corners for spare change. He covered his face with his hand, overwhelmed. The judges, too, were stunned. Heidi clapped enthusiastically, shouting, "Bravo!" Sophia had tears in her eyes. Howie smiled warmly, nodding in approval. And Simon Cowell was still standing. The applause faded just enough for Simon to speak. He leaned into his microphone, his voice unusually soft. Juan, he said, pausing as if to collect his thoughts. I don't think I've ever met anyone quite like you. You walked onto this stage shy, nervous, unsure of yourself, and then you sang like you've lived 1,000 lifetimes. That wasn't just singing. That was pure heart. That was what this show is all about. Juan stood frozen, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His lips trembled, trying to form words, but all he managed was a whispered, "Thank you, sir." Simon nodded, his expression firm now. And you know what? I don't want to waste any more time. Then, without another word, Simon reached forward and slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. The entire theater exploded into screams and cheers. Golden confetti burst from above, raining down in a sparkling storm. Juan fell to his knees, covering his face with his hands as tears poured out. He was crying not from sadness, but from a dream that had suddenly come true. His mother in the audience cried louder than anyone, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. She shouted his name, overwhelmed with pride. The other judges stood clapping, smiles wide. Howie cheered, Heidi wiped tears from her cheeks, and Sophia shouted over the noise, "Yes, Juan." Yes. Simon, now standing, walked up to the stage. He bent slightly, his voice calm but filled with respect. "Juan," he said, "your life is never going to be the same after tonight. You've given us something unforgettable." The audience continued chanting his name, Juan, Juan, Juan. The sound was like thunder, echoing through the entire building. As the golden confetti swirled around him, Juan looked up to the heavens, his hands pressed to his heart. He whispered, barely audible, "For my family, this is for you." The boy who once sang for coins on the streets of Manila was now standing on one of the biggest stages in the world, chosen by Simon Cowell himself. His story wasn't just about talent, it was about hope, about proving that no matter where you come from, dreams can shine brighter than poverty, brighter than fear, brighter than anything. And that night, Juan didn't just win a golden buzzer. He won the hearts of millions.